Ladies, and welcome to LadyBoss Unplugged. I am Kaitlyn, and I'm so excited to have you ladies here with me for this very special episode. Today, I am joined by a longtime friend, mentor, and someone who's been in my corner for years, and honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today without her. Some of you might know her as Coach Jess. To me, she is Miss Jessica Peart, and I would not be here without her in my corner every step of my journey for the last, probably 10 years. Welcome back. Jessica is someone who, as I mentioned, has been in my corner for years, but she introduced me to a practice about 5 years ago that has honestly changed my life. We're going to talk about this simple practice and how it can create a massive shift in your life. I knew I wanted to share this topic with you, and I thought, who better than the person who taught me herself? And so I'm going to let Jessica in here in just a moment. She has truly been a mentor, and her guidance has shaped me. And Jessica, I am so happy to have you on Lady Boss Unplugged. I'm sure a lot of our lady bosses are as well. How are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, Kaitlyn, I literally have goosebumps. I've got tears welling up in my eyes. Like, for real. I am so honored. So honored to be here with you and just have watched you over the years. See, literally, I'm not supposed to cry this. Oh, gosh, dang it, you. But no, seriously, like just watching you over the years and just like becoming the woman that you are, and to be able to lead such an incredible organization, like there's nothing better. And to all of my lady bosses out there, holy cow, it is so good to be back with you and to see you. There's so many of you that I have made friendships with. It. I just, I watch you on social media, and even if I'm not like commenting all the time, it's the women here are so amazing, and they're doing such awesome things. And I'm just super, super pumped to be here. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for asking me to join you.
Of course. I hope this is not our only one. I hope we do this. Like, you're a regular guest. I would love that, because again, you're a big lady boss. Like, might not be your journey right now, but like you're part of Lady Boss, right? And so, yes. And as much as I don't cry, you always make me cry because it's emotional. And so you brought out my tears too. No crying. We're not going to cry.
Okay, tears done.
Yes.
Okay, out of the way.
And I think that everyone might be on edge now. I told them about this practice and how it can make a massive shift in their life, but I didn't tell them what this practice is. So Jessica, would you like to drop the curtain?
Totally. So this practice is something that I discovered a long time ago, kind of haphazardly, and it is choosing a word of the year. Choosing a word of the year that embodies what you want to get out of this. Because, I mean, let's face it, how many times in January, it's like, set the goal, do all the things. And most times I fail. I fail miserably at like achieving that one goal, or maybe like that goal changes. And choosing a word of the year has just helped keep me like so much more centered. Yeah.
I love it. Why do you think focusing on one word can keep you so centered?
I think part of it goes back to, like when you set goals, and like you set goals in January, and then by February, you're like, oh, well, that doesn't mean anything. Or, oh, some things have shifted, or I failed. And so to come up with a word of the year, instead of it being like a very specific goal, it's more of a specific mindset that you want to go into everything with. And we all know, as lady bosses, you got to work on what's up here first before everything else down below starts following along. And I think that's why it's so important, is to truly approach your mindset in a different way, because then every goal that you set, whether it's a long-term goal, a short-term goal, whatever it may be, you approach it in the way that is going to honor who you are.
I love that. Now, how long have you been doing this? Picking words of the year?
Oh my gosh. It's hard to say. Because really, like for me, it started out like many years ago, and I'll share a story in a second here, but I I found a word that really, really resonated with me. And it was in July. So it was not like, start of the year, whatever. But that word really got me through some like crazy things that were going on. But then I kind of forgot about it. I kind of forgot about choosing the word. And it wasn't until like a few years later when I started thinking about like, hey, what are my goals? Where am I going? What am I doing? What do I want in my life? And I came back to a word. And so I used a word again. And then, fast forward and somebody's like, well, you got to set the goals in January. So I set the goals in January and I'm like, I keep on failing. Why am I failing over and over and over again? Just like everybody else in January. And so it's been probably, I would say 15-ish years, 12, 15-ish years that I've been much, much more steady at it. Yeah.
That's awesome. The fear of failure is so huge. And when we set those goals time after time, everyone, you might succeed on some, and that's amazing if you do, but 9 times out of 10, there's definitely some that just don't make it to the end of the year.
Yeah, I know.
So, do you remember that first word?
I
That's a
thought
long
I'd
time
tell
ago.
you a story because I knew kind of what we were talking about. Um, so for many of you lady bosses out there who way back in the day, I mean, I'm talking OG days, it was a live challenge and I shared my story of overcoming postpartum depression and how I did that and what it meant to me. But what I honestly haven't really shared very often is the word that I chose. During that time, I actually ran a craft show. So, like an old farmer's market. Kaitlyn, do you even remember like those old craft shows that used to pop up around?
Yes, I sure do.
Okay.
They do like we're from the same town for you ladies that don't know. And so like they do them at like the Wyndham, Fairfield areas and
Mhm.
downtown. And yes,
Yep. So
I
I
love
ran that for quite a few years. And it was kind of on top of everything else that I was doing because I was a little busybody. I had just had 2 kids. My second one was a preemie. My husband traveled for work. I was starting my personal training business and my coaching business. And I needed just a little bit of extra. And somebody had asked me, hey, why don't you do this craft fair? So I'm like, okay, I'll do this craft fair. So I brought in like all of these vendors who had handmade goods. And one of those vendors was a potter. And so she made gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous pottery. And so I would always go around, check on them. And during that time, I was struggling so much with balance in the way of how do I balance being a new mom with 2 really little kids? How do I balance being a wife with, my husband traveling a lot? How do I balance starting a new business? How do I balance it all and feeling so pulled in so many different directions? And as I went by this one booth, she had these little necklaces and they were just itty bitty little pieces of pottery that she'd tied on like a string. And on the front side of it was a Japanese symbol. And on the back side of it was the English word just kind of like carved into the pottery. And I was looking at it, and this one that said balance just struck me so hard that I was like, I need that in my life. So I bought the necklace and I wore it for, I don't know how long, but for a really, really long time. And every time when I was in the heat of one of those moments of I'm being stretched in ways that I don't even know how to manage, or I'm feeling so out of balance that I'm pouring everything into being a mom that I had forgotten to be a wife or I'd forgotten to be a mom, I would actually touch right here because that's where my necklace fell. It was like right between, like right below my collarbone. And I touched that and I'm like, balance, just balance. And that for me was like the start to remembering that I mattered and that I could I could balance it all if I paid attention to it. And Kaitlyn, known each other for a long, long, long time. And how many times do I go like this?
a lot. Yes, I never realized that was why.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love it.
yeah.
And I've heard, so I know your story with your daughter being a preemie um, and the depression you went through and how hard that time was and some of the pieces you used to get that out. But I never knew that that's where your word of the year began. I didn't know that that was such a big piece of that
Yeah,
part of your life.
I know. oh gosh, how old is my daughter now? 23. Yes,
Crazy.
23 years ago is really when that first, like having a word and having
Being able to
something
focus on it.
physical. Yeah. And
Now,
that
do
makes,
you still have that necklace?
I do.
Oh my gosh, you some.
I should have grabbed it. I should have grabbed it. Yeah, it's in my jewelry box. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just, little pieces of things that I have kind of all over the place that have some of my words on them, because it, like, those things to me become so important, because it's not just necessarily the word, it is everything that has happened because of that word and because of how I'm able to focus on it. Yeah.
I love it. So my this one's that balance is gonna be hard to beat, I think. But what would you say was your most life changing word, or was it balance?
You know, I pause because I think for almost every word that I've chosen has become so meaningful and so impactful, because I take my time when I choose my word, that every single one has become like something special to me. But probably the one that in probably the last 10 years is worthy. The word worthy. I don't know if any of you guys have read Jamie Kern Lima's book,
Yes.
Worthy. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
I just finished it not too long ago, and it just really brought back like this flood of memories of, when I chose that word worthy. Um, I was going through a really, really, really tough time. And I never felt worthy. I never felt good enough. I never felt that what I did mattered, or that people saw me, or that my work was good enough. Um, just all of the things about, self confidence, and, just knowing who you are. And I know for a lot of people who know me or maybe have seen me in the Lady Boss community think, oh my gosh, she struggled with that. Well,
That's what I'm thinking right now. I'm like, what?
oh, it is a common thread in my life, Kaitlyn. It is a common thread, is struggling with that. But when I really solidified that word worthy, I went into so many different conversations, not with like this intrepidation of, oh, what is this person going to think of me? What are they going to do? How are they going to react to me? I started approaching it that I'm worthy to be here, and I'm worthy to accept these responsibilities. I'm worthy to ask for a raise.
Yes. Ooh.
I'm worthy to ask for like help. And it's actually Kaitlyn when you entered the picture, believe it or not.
Yay.
Yeah. So you guys, we go way back.
We go way, way back.
We go way
And like I said, like that's news to me that you felt like that. And not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but like I'm a testament to the work you do. I would not be where I am today without your guidance and your support. And never once did I look at Jessica like, why is she there? It was always like, gosh, like I want to be her one day. Like if I could just hold myself high and proud like she does, if I could just show up in a room as bright and bubbly as she does, I mean, I could go on and on and on. Um, but every step of the way, I'm like, she's got it. Like she is an example that I am very proud to have in my life, and has been a big part of it, a big light.
Well, Kaitlyn, thank you. And that just makes me even have more imposter syndrome.
No imposter syndrome. It's not allowed. Kick it to the curb. You're worthy.
See? See, but I think too, so many people think, well, if I choose a word, or if I am struggling with this, and it's like, act as if you're worthy, act as if you have balance, act as if like that word is you, act as if. And when you start acting as if, that's when you start actually making better decisions or approaching things in a different way. Because if you're like, oh, I'm not worthy, I can't do that, I know that's my word. Yeah, screw that. Sorry. act,
You said it.
act as if.
Yep. Act as if. I love that. So we've got to have balance. We have worthy. Do you have a word that might have completely changed your trajectory in life? Like, was there one that was just like, whoa, caught you off guard, probably even because it was just like, wow, this is not January, December, looks completely different.
Okay, you guys, you're going to see so many common threads with me. This is so funny. And as I was just thinking about our conversation today, it's funny because I'm a big reflector, and I like to reflect back on, like, what have I done? How is this being done, or whatever. And one of the threads, like I already shared, is self-doubt is a big thread, or, not feeling good enough. This word actually came to me in the form of a story. I was going through my practice of how I actually choose a word. And it was something that I happened to see on social media. You know how, like, you follow certain sites that just, like, you follow them just because they've got really good stuff, not because you know who they are or anything. Yeah, okay. It was one of
Yep.
those. And this story about kintsugi came across my feed. And I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, I so resonate with that. Kintsugi is a Japanese pottery. Whoa.
Whoa, I get goosebumps again. Full circle.
Yeah. 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 So what kintsugi is, and I'm sure that if you have seen this pottery, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So the pottery has been broken. And in Japanese culture, they cherish, I think, things a lot more than a lot of us do. We kind of are a, throwaway culture, but they really cherish a lot of their belongings. And so even as something got broken, it was the art of kintsugi that actually put it back together. And so they would take these broken pieces of pottery, put it back together, but they fused it with gold. And so you look at this pottery and there's these beautiful lines of gold, of all of these cracks in this pottery. And the moral behind it is that everybody has a story. Everybody has cracks. Everybody has broken pieces. Everybody has these things that, we're carrying, this baggage, like this heavy backpack. But when we actually start owning it and saying that my mistakes are not mistakes, they're ways that I learned. When we look at those cracks and say, these things almost broke me to the point where I thought I was going to be tossed to the side. It's that art of kintsugi, pulling it back together with gold, that you actually know your worth and know that, every scar you have just makes you a better person. And so that word for me, like I said, the themes of self-doubt have always kind of been there with me, of like, I'm not good enough. But that word for me of owning my mistakes, owning my failures in a way that that's who made me who I am, that's what, Kaitlyn, even we've had so many conversations of, this is where I was broken and this is how I came out of it. And this is how we can help each other, because we've both helped each other through things.
Yes.
It's not just a one-way street, you guys. Kaitlyn has been such a huge part of my life too. But that just has honestly changed how I approach things. And I will say age. Age. The older you get, the less you care about certain things. But I
Yeah,
think it allowed me to own some of those cracks in my earlier days, and just own who I am.
I love it. I love that. And completely full circle, being that it's a piece of pottery, and yet that first word of balance was on that piece of pottery. Like, wow,
You know,
that's
I know.
wild.
It wasn't until, honestly, last night, as I was really thinking about it and thinking, I actually pulled up some of my journals and I started, flipping through them, and I was like, what have been all of my words? I've thrown some of my journals away. Dumb, I know. But it was like, holy cow, look at these threads that are just constantly woven. Like,
Mm.
it just mind boggling, absolutely mind boggling.
You want to know? Um, they're also woven. I've got two right now that just give me goosebumps, and so I don't know which one I want to share because they're kind of. I'll share them both, but the one that gives me goosebumps the most right now is so. It's the beginning of the year. I just picked a new word this year, and I was going back and forth between three words. I was going between faith, faithful was my word, surrender, or purpose.
Mm.
Living in God's faith, surrendering to God, living in God's purpose, all things in purpose and surrender and faith. And those are my 3 words. And it took me a little bit to narrow it down. Yeah. And I narrowed it down to purpose, all things in God's purpose. And the track I am on is on for purpose. There's a plan. It is purposeful in all things. And because Jessica taught me, am big about people around me also picking a word, because I know how life-changing it can be. And so I met with the LadyBoss team the beginning of the year, and I hadn't shared my word quite yet. And I asked if they had picked a word. And some of you might know Coach Amy. Coach Amy is on the LadyBoss team, and she picked the word surrender. And it didn't even click at that point. I was like, oh, I love that. That's great. You know, what does it mean to you? And I had her break it down, and I wrote it down. It didn't even, at the moment, I promise you, it wasn't like, oh, that was one of my words I was working on. That's weird. Didn't cross my mind. Erica, who's also on the LadyBoss team, had not picked a word yet. And she's like, I'll get back to you by the end of the week. I'm still working on it. I'm like, okay. So the following meeting rolls around, and I ask Erica, and she's like, yeah, I've picked it. It's faith. And at that time, when she said it, it was instant goosebumps. It all clicked. I actually had to go back through my notes because I'm like, this can't be real. Oh, and sure enough, those were the 3 words I was looking at. I had wrote them down as I was studying which word would fit. And I hadn't told these ladies this at all. And I didn't even remember when I was talking to Amy about her word. And again, it's all in God's purpose and God's plan, because I'm like, I wasn't supposed to remember when Amy told me, because if I would have told them then, I would have told them all 3 words, which would have changed Erica's track. And I'm like, how crazy is that? Can that not tell you that LadyBoss and the team are on the right, we're on the right track. We have the purpose, we have the surrender, we have the faithfulness to live out this LadyBoss mission we're on. But I was like, what are the chances? There's 1,000,001 words out there. And in past years with their words that, no, not to knock their past words, but create, bold, those words are not words that are mine. I would never pick those words, at least not right now in my life. And so the fact that their words were literally on my list, and the top 3, yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Again, those threads, right? Those threads that just get woven together. And, when you surround yourself with like-minded people, I'm going to say people, oh my gosh, it's magic, you guys. It's magic, because you start to move in the same direction, not just as them, but the same direction of what your words are. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. Wow.
I'm still in shock. I'm like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay, I'm really living in my purpose.
Right? Yes.
And those other 2 words are so important, that they also, not only because of them using their word, it's also going to help you with your word, and vice versa. Wow.
Yeah. Totally will. It's good. It's okay,
you have to tell us the other story, though.
Huh?
You have to tell us the other story, the other word.
So the other word was my word last year. And there's a pattern with my words as well. And it's very much the same concept as yours, where it's not feeling good enough and living with this fear of failure, the fear of letting someone down, or the judgment of others and not being good enough. And imposter syndrome is a mean beast, I tell you what. And so all of my words relate back to overcoming those things. And so last year, my word was unstoppable. Mm-hmm. Unstoppable in, again, all things. I'm not going to let fear through. I am unstoppable. I can do whatever I put my mind to. And something in January that I thought of a dream that was never going to come true ended up coming true in December, which I am now the proud owner of LadyBoss, and the LadyBoss entity is called Unstoppable Legacy LLC, because we're unstoppable, and living in that unstoppable mindset is what has pushed me past so much of my fears and doubts and anxiety driven moments. And I want that to happen for so many others as well.
Kaitlyn, is this an announcement?
No, everyone already knows by now. It is not the announcement, but it might be an announcement for you. I'm sorry. It's a surprise.
Actually, you guys, Kaitlyn and I have been sharing messages, obviously, but I was like, oh my gosh, is she literally announcing this right now with me?
No, but I am announcing the entity name. Like, yes,
Oh my
the
gosh.
business is called LadyBoss. Everyone knows it as LadyBoss, and that's what's on our bags. But the entity itself has a whole meaning too, because we're unstoppable as lady bosses. We're unstoppable when we step into our power. And when we're unstoppable, we create a legacy that can't be touched.
Yeah.
That will happen years like past when we're gone.
Kaitlyn, you are unstoppable. And I have seen it over and over again. What an amazing name to name the LLC. That is, again, goosebump moments here, you guys. Goosebump moments.
Like when it happened, I'm like, yep, like that's it. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's crazy how one word can change the trajectory of so many things in so many different ways, right?
Yep. It definitely can.
Yeah.
So, as a whole,
Mhm.
how would you say choosing a word has shaped your journey over the last couple of years? Personal, business, lady boss? I know you mentioned like we've been through some stuff, you and I, just together, while in our personal lives and everything else. It's not always been good, right? And
Yeah.
some have been
Yeah.
great, and we've been
Yeah.
there for each other. But how have those words helped through those times and really shaped your entire journey over, you said you've been doing it for 10, 12 years?
Yeah. I think again, it's just how I think Kaitlyn, you and I come to our words of the year, like the process that we go through of reflection and like really looking at like what happened in the last year. Where am I at? Self-assessing, self-reflecting, really understanding like who you are. And Kaitlyn, this is a practice we've both done, is writing a list of like, what do I want more of in my life? What do I want less of in my life based upon like where you're at right now in the moment. And then utilizing that list to come up with certain words. And some of the words that I've come up with, and I'll share just a couple of them. One of them was abundance. And it was after a really trying time with my career. There had just been a lot of changes, a lot of growth, and as we know, growth is not always easy. growth
Yeah.
is growth is very challenging at times. And coming out of that year, the mindset that I was in is, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough skill. I don't have enough of this. I don't have enough, finances. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. Right. That was just kind of the mindset I was in because, yeah, crap had happened. So as I was looking at that, I'm like, well, what do I want more of in my life? Well, I want more time. I want more time to spend with my family. I want more time to actually do the parts of leadership in my career that I had really, really wanted to do because I knew that if we were going to go anywhere, that I needed to build and mentor a leadership team. So I needed time to do that. I needed more. And so I'm like, well, what is the word of like more? And I'm like, well, abundance. And so I started living that word of abundance. And when I'm like, I don't have enough time, I'm like, no, I've got enough time for the things that I really want and the things that I really treasure. Um, I have an abundance of just all things. And it just really changed my mindset of just stopping and just that momentary pause of saying, no, I do have enough. I am very blessed. I do have enough. Not just that I have enough, but I have an abundance of it. And so that was one that changed really my mindset of that. Um, Another one was fun. I wanted to have fun. Again, Kaitlyn, um, we'd gone through some crazy times and I had made a big switch. And I was like, I need to have some fun in my life because I am just like working like a dog. I am not putting anything back into like my life.
Oh,
And so this was actually 2 summers ago. That it was my word for that year. Funny how things kind of opened up and kind of changed. But my word was fun. And so that summer, my husband and I, we were newly empty nesters, and we had some really, really good friends, still do. But we, every single weekend, we went someplace, even if it was like an hour away, a couple hours away. We would camp for the weekend. We'd mountain bike. We just had so much fun. And we had so much fun, like going and seeing our kids who were in college or just graduated college. But really, everything about that year was about having fun. And it just like brought a life back to, honestly, like all of my relationships, because it was so important to me to make sure that I was having fun. um yeah.
I love that. I say all the time, I'm at a point in my life where I work to play now instead of work to live and pay bills.
Yeah.
And part of that is because of where I live. The cost of living here is cheaper. But it's so true. Is like when you start focusing on fun
Mhm.
and go, like being active and whatnot, it impacts your health, your mindset. So, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I guess I just need to not stop getting off track. But it's amazing when you get to do something every weekend. And you're almost complaining, like, okay, we've gone somewhere the last 4 weekends, but like that's exciting because for so long it was like, okay, we've got this family birthday party, we've got this family event, the house is dirty, we can't afford it,
Mhm.
and you live in almost that negative mindset rather than like, no, I get to do this. I get to do this with these people. I get to
Mhm.
spend time with my husband.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, because we would kind of sneak out sometimes like on a Thursday, like after work, and then I would work, Friday mornings, whatever. And so we were gone like Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, 4 days. And I'm like, that means that I've got literally like 3.5 days of like solid work. I mean, well, I was working other things. It's just different. Like, I guess like, it was more like in the office work.
Mhm.
And there were times I would get into that. I'm like, I just need to be home. Like, I need to get some stuff done. I need to clean my house. And I'm like, screw it.
All right, I'm gonna tell the ladies this. Don't hate me, but I totally remember when you guys bought your RV van and started traveling everywhere in that. I'm fairly certain you totally took a Zoom call from your bathroom in there. Okay, the little toilet room in the back.
Oh, I totally did. Oh, yeah.
You
Because
definitely worked and played.
oh, yeah. Oh, first, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, again, because I wanted more fun in my life. And so,
Make it
yep,
happen.
I probably had my mountain bike gear on and padded shorts and
Big old
all of
cut
that.
on your forehead. Remember that one?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, I've shown up to many a meeting with bruises and cuts and scrapes from doing stupid stuff, but all in the name of fun.
All in the name of fun. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I see I got a list of Jessica's
Yeah.
some of Jessica's passwords here, and I see intentional on here.
Mm.
And Jessica knows this because she introduced me to my first word and or words of the year, and my very first word was also intentional.
Mm.
Crazily enough, which I didn't know that was one of her words. So I want to know. Tell me what like your word of intentional. Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Intentional for me was sometimes like I felt like I was just going with the flow. Like whatever needed to happen, I just made sure it happened.
Mm.
Um, blowing with the wind, however you want to say it. And I wanted to make sure, kind of like what your word is right now, purpose, intentional, I think is very similar to that. Intentional in how I show up for my family, intentional how I show up at work, to even to the point of like I would write down, I keep a little notebook in front of me, still do, all the notes, all the stuff. I would actually write a name at the top of my book of the person that I wanted to connect with that day on my team. So and sometimes it was, a direct report. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was just somebody else in the organization. But I wanted to be intentional about who I was talking to and how I was talking to them. When it came to my family, I wanted to be intentional because my youngest daughter she was in high school, And my other two kids had already left the house. And so it was kind of like she was the only kid at home. And I wanted to be intentional with my time with her. And so, again, a lot of times on a Friday afternoon, I would
Yeah,
sneak out and I'd take her skiing because I wanted to be intentional about those things. It was also getting intentional about date nights and making sure that like I spent time with my husband. It encompassed a lot, but it was more of like being intentional with my actions and actually have a meaning behind it and a reason behind it instead of just going with the flow, doing whatever.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So, okay, I got to hear from you because intentional was one of your words too.
Yes. And okay, so one of the things I love is like intentional was your word at one point, and intentional was my very first word. And Jessica was nice enough. She bought me a ring. I wish I had it on right now. I don't. With the word intentional, and we'll get into that. But and while we both had the same word, it was different meanings, similar, but they meant different things to us.
Mhm.
For me, I was a workaholic at the time. I was working at the crack of dawn till sometimes 3 in the morning, maybe 4 in the morning. Ridiculous amount. And I was definitely neglecting my family, if I'm being honest with myself. And so to me, it was being intentional with my time. If I'm at work, they get my attention. When it is time to close up and go on with my day, and I am with my family, I am intentional with my family. There was no more like, oh, I got to take this call or answer this chat. It was no, I am being intentional with them and putting the love and support and care that they need from me into them. And so it was really more intentional with my time than with people,
Mhm.
which, led to the people too, because they felt that.
Mhm.
But I had to make those clear, like workout time is for me, work time is for my job. But then after, 5 o'clock hits, I'm closing it up. It's the weekend, I'm closing it up, and it's family time.
Mhm. Yeah. It's so cool, honestly, that both of us have had the same word, but yet they had just little bits of different meaning to us. And I think even, for all of you who are listening, maybe some of the words that we've shared maybe strike a chord with you, but not in the same way that they struck a chord with us. And
Yes.
that's awesome. Like, don't think that just because that's what like we've done, that that's what you need to do. This is your journey. This is you.
I try to look at the words, and it depends on the word. There's different ways to phrase them. But to me, I look at it for a statement. So for me, in all things, I want to live with purpose. Purpose in all things.
Mhm.
A previous word of mine was gratitude. Gratitude in all things.
Yeah.
And for you ladies listening, you might be like, okay, gratitude has nothing to do with, feeling unworthy. And I'm like, but it does, okay? Because my definition did. Because in gratitude, you can't live in fear. Just put throwing that out there. That's was my word.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's totally shaped it.
Mhm.
And I know it's impacted many others. And Jessica, you've been doing this much longer than me. And I know you've mentored many, myself included. I've already shared quite a few of my stories. Are there any stories that you have for those you've mentored that have picked words that you've just been like, wow, like that huge, huge, huge change or transition for those people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish that I could remember the exact words that some people chose. I can't. But I will tell you that some of the people that I've been able to work with and the impact that it had on their lives. One person in particular, Kaitlyn, you and I worked together with this person, and she just really struggled with honestly her own worth, and she would come at things in a way, in such a bold, direct way that people wouldn't listen to her. And she had incredible knowledge, incredible insight. And I remember she chose a word, and I don't remember the exact word, but what I saw is that she started changing her communication style. And because of that, she ended up getting promotion after promotion. Um, and she was actually able to take and honestly mentor other people. It was like this absolutely amazing thing. And it's just like one of those moments for me that, I look back at my career and who I've been able to touch, and she's always one that will always, be a part of that. Another person that again, it was like this self-worth. That was a big, big, big struggle. I wish I could remember her word. I don't, but it was just really cool, like watching her step into her own and actually owning who she was. That was a really cool thing. And there's a couple people that I'm working with right now that have chosen their words. And just because I'm working with right now, I'm not going to share their words because they're very they're very personal to them.
Mhm.
But one of them is stepping into her power in such a beautiful way and actually defining what and who and where, like the who, what, where, when, all of those, the five questions, right? She's stepping into that in such a way that I cannot wait to see what happens throughout this year because of it. It's it's a beautiful thing. But Kaitlyn, I will say probably the people that I've impacted the most is my family. My kids have known some of my words over the year, and sometimes they make fun of me. And they're
Yeah.
like, really, you do this and blah, 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 right?
Yes.
But at the same time, like, they know because I will have the conversation with them. I'm doing this because I want to be intentional. I'm doing this because I do have an abundance of time, and I'll use those words. And so they've seen that, through me. And so watching them, as my son and his wife have graduated from college, they're in their careers. My daughter is graduating literally in like 2-3 months. Her and her husband, the things that they're doing. My youngest daughter, the things that she's doing. Like, I just look at, like, they have such purpose in their lives and purpose for what they're doing that I'm like, I know for a fact it's because we talked about these things as they grew up. It's been molded into them.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you've had that ability to mold that into them because, as you mentioned earlier, like some of a lot of the growth you've had, or some of the growth you've had, has been as you've gotten older, right? Because we can look back and we can see all our bumps and bruises that we had along the way, and you're able to help guide them by being that example of, look at the difference. You knew me in my low, and you know me in my highs, and you know me in my in betweens, and
Yeah.
are we able to tell our kids don't do this because we've been there and they're going to always listen? No. But to know that there is that light on the other side of whatever struggle they might go through, whatever upcoming event they have, that they can persevere, that
Yeah.
they can lock in and focus on whatever that goal is they want.
Yeah. On to even, when it comes to giving advice to your kids, because you've taught them like your decision making process and how you make decisions, they will come to you and ask you too about how do you navigate through this. It's a way to build that trust with your kids, but also, Kaitlyn, like you and I, like, we've got so much trust in each other, and honestly, the other people that we've been able to work with, because of like being just open about these words and like what it means to us and why we're doing these things. It creates as a much better relationship, honestly.
Yes, it does for sure.
Yeah.
It provides that authenticity and that transparency, especially we all know social media is a highlight reel, but that's not life. That's not real life.
No, it is not. It is not. It really is the highlight reel.
Yes. So for someone who's just starting off,
Mhm.
or maybe having a hard time picking a word of the year, I know for me, I started with like 15 and then I narrowed it down to those three. What advice would you give to those people just starting off or having a hard time picking one?
Yeah. So my first tip is grab your phone, pull open your pictures, your photo gallery, and start scrolling back. Scroll back, scroll back, scroll back, and look at what has been going on in your life. Doing that assessment. And I think that's probably one of the easiest ways to do it. For a lot of us, I used to for a long time have a lot of stuff on social media. I don't as much now, but we may not share it there, but you take pictures of it. So open
Mhm.
up your photo gallery, start looking through, and start thinking about, like, even in those moments, how did you feel? what were the things that were going through your mind? So it's time to do that self-reflection. So that's the first step, is do that self-reflection. Kaitlyn, have you done that too?
Yes, I sure have. And it blows me away because it's normally unintentional self reflection. But take last year, for example, I going into November, December, I was like, man, this year flew by. I feel like it was Christmas yesterday. And then I looked at my pictures
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, like in my mind, it did seem like it was yesterday. But when I look at all that I did with my family, with my friends, with my career, whatever, without those pictures, it, no, like I had an awesome year last year. It didn't just fly by.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, that's the first part of it, is just like, it's that self-reflection, like really like knowing what did you do. But then for me, and I already shared this little tip. So I take a notebook, draw a line straight down the center, and I write the word more of on one side, less of on the other. And I start going through, after I've reflected, what do I want more of? Like, out of like all those pictures that I had, what do I want to do more of that like was so much fun, or like that just really filled me to my core. Um, what are those things that I want more of in my life? But then at the flip side of it is, what do I want less of? And for me, it's never been, they've all, there's again, common threads. One of them, I've always said, I want more music in my home. Because
Oh,
sometimes I just forget to turn on the music, like when I'm cooking dinner or whatever. Um, I want, so that's a more of, less of, I want less of like just idle TV time, just sitting there, or. So it's, even though like I may have that on my list a lot of times, sometimes again going back and reflecting, being like, well, I actually did have less idle TV time because I was doing it, I was filling it with a lot of my more ofs. So really looking at that more of less of list, and then start thinking of, what are the commonalities in here? If I want to get more of this and I want to have less of this, what is the mindset that I need to have going into it? And Kaitlyn, using you for example, you're like, you come up with these phrases. So it's like a phrase first, and then you start narrowing it down to, here's the word.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to sit on that word for a couple of days, and that's okay. Sit on it and then change it and see, well, does this one suit me better? Do I like how I look in the mirror with this one better? And sometimes you have to go back and forth. But it's that process of reflection, and then really thinking of, what do you want to do moving forward, and then putting it into a phrase, and then pulling it down to a word.
I love it. Do you still set goals as well in January?
I really don't.
No.
I
No.
don't. Not like I used to. Um, I set a lot of goals over the course of the year. Like I'll set like monthly goals, but it's not like, here is my goal for 2025. I don't do that, because honestly, I have failed miserably so many times
Such
at
a crummy feeling.
accomplishing. I'm like, why? Why put that torture on myself? Why bring more of that self doubt into my life? I don't need that. So, really, I go more with the word of the year, because that's how I approach everything. And then I set smaller goals. Like if it's like, hey, for this week, I want to make sure I get this done, or this month, I want to do this. So, yeah. Do you set goals too?
Um, I do set goals, but you actually just said it. You threw it in there. My next question was, do you ever relate, even with those monthly goals, does your word connect with them? And you said, no, like really, my word of the year are those goals. And same with when I sit down and set goals, whether yearly or monthly, I don't focus on that list I wrote because it all ties back to my word.
Yep.
My goals will be fulfilled if I just focus on
Mhm.
living a purpose.
Totally, totally. Like I shared, the year that I said I want to have a lot of fun. Kaitlyn, you and I were actually working together at the very beginning of the year. And I know that we talked a lot about like, what we're going to do for fun, and, some of those things. And then there was a big shift that happened. And I was like, oh no, I don't think I'm going to be able to have fun now. I like literally, that was a big, like, oh no, what's going to happen with my word? And I was like, uh-uh. No, I knew that I needed to have fun in my life no matter what. And so um, even though things had shifted, oh,
Oh, I think you're back now.
okay, am I back? Sorry. But so even though like, some things had shifted in my life where I was like, there's no way I can have fun anymore. I was like, no, I need to have fun, even more so now than what I initially thought. And so that's when I was like, I'm doing this. I am still going to keep that word. So even if things change in your life over the course of the year, that word is going to pull you back to your purpose. I'm going to use your word again, Kaitlyn. Purpose is going to pull you back to your purpose in a way that you're going to continue to feel it. So when you go back and you look at, the reflection, you go back and you look at your pictures, it's like, yeah, I did it. I did it despite all obstacles because I'm unstoppable. There you go. I'll tie that
Ooh,
one.
you just throw them all in. Hit them hard. Oh, and from experience, I asked this, but when you were faced with that challenging time and had to reevaluate your word and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
did you experience a sense or a change of like you just leveled up? Like you felt maybe free or unleashed or like it just, do you know where I'm going with that question?
Yeah, definitely. So at that time, because I was making a big change, it actually helped to guide me in the type of change that I wanted to make and where I was going to go next. And so instead of it being like, hey, I'm going to jump back into something that, maybe didn't suit me, I was like, nope, I need to make sure that no matter what I do, that I'm going to have fun. And so it also helped shape my next decisions too. But yeah, there was the oh crap moment for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's amazing how it, you start finding you in these words, the
Uh-huh.
person you want to be, the person you desire to be. And as you focus and lock in on it, that person, the you inside of you, just pulls out more and more.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 It is. It's such a growth thing because you always want to like level yourself up. You always want to get better, but so many times, and that's why I think sometimes goals fail so miserably, is because they're just so short term and it's not fixing what's up here. They're not fixing your mindset. But when you start changing your mindset, that's again when the
See
magic
it.
happens. Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, one word for an entire year might seem easy to remember, but they're not because life gets in the way.
Hmm.
What are some of your tips that to help keep you centered around that word and constant reminder?
I have little things all over the place with my word on it. So right back there, I don't know if you can see it. Let me move my chair.
Yes. Yep.
Live in truth. My word is truth, for this year. So I will put little things like that. On that wall over there, I've got a big painting of mountains and it has the word dream on it. That was my word for that year, was dream. And it's a huge, great big painting. A piece of jewelry, like I said, that necklace, or Kaitlyn even said a ring, or a little like jewelry dish where I keep it in my bathroom. And so like when I, hop in the shower, whatever, I put like my rings and stuff like that in it. So I'm seeing that word over and over again. That physical reminder is so important. And because I live in such a digital world, I'm on my computer all the time, I'm on my phone all the time. I'll create like a phone screensaver or like the screensaver on my laptop, or I'll get a sticker and put a sticker on it. Just again, it's like taking that word and making sure that I have it visually in places that I'm going to see it all over the place.
I love it. So you mentioned the dish. The year of gratitude
Mhm.
was what, I think 3 years ago, and Jessica bought me a jewelry dish, which I still have. But I also want to share this. This has been 3 years. Okay, I got my desk is normally here. My house is under construction. I got a mini desk right now. This is on my bulletin board next to my desk. It sits here all the time. It sits like this. Gratitude over fear. That was my word. And all things I live in gratitude, because with gratitude, I can't be in fear. And 3 years later, that still sits there because
Yep.
I'm still going. Like, yeah, it's not the word I'm focusing on this year, but it's just that reminder of the growth I've had in it and
Mhm.
that I'm going to continue on being grateful.
Yeah. It can be literally as simple as a sticky note. It doesn't have to be anything major, but you need to have some type of a physical reminder. And I like to say, put it in your living space. Now, your living space is not your living room because most of us don't live in our living rooms. We live in our cars, we live on our phones, we live in our bathrooms, we live in our, whatever. And so it's putting them in your living space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I spend a lot of hours at my desk. So there's always a reminder at my desk for sure.
Yeah.
And in
Me
my
too.
car.
Me too. I mean, you see, live in truth. Oh, look, follow your dream is another one.
They're
Yeah.
all,
Yeah. They're all over the place. Yeah. They're all over the place.
no, me too. I've got, for this year, my stuff just came in. I should have worn it. I got purpose as a necklace today or this year. I got purpose for my travel, like makeup bag. Um, and I also got purpose on a compact mirror. So it's in my purse or in my car. So it's always wherever I go.
Yeah.
Like that might seem redundant to some of you, but like it helps keep me centered. I'm like, okay, life gets in the way. It really does. And you might get off track with that word. But when you see those trinkets and those reminders, it helps you recenter.
Yeah, it does. Like, I can't tell you how many times, and I have it right back there because part of Live My Truth is, for me, it's also being bold in my statements because there's a lot of times where I will just be silent and I'm like, I guess if that's what they're really wanting, I'm like, no, I need to live my truth. I need to share what my truth is. And there's a lot more meaning to it, but sometimes your word is so personal that sometimes you need to live it a little bit before you can share it, and that's where I'm at with some of it. So I won't share all of it, but that's part of it is because as I'm sitting here and I'm teaching or talking to somebody or whatever, I'm like, truth, live my truth.
Yes. Be authentic, live your truth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love it. So we've got all of our ladies listening. Some ladies may be new. I hope so. Jessica, what do you have for them? What do you challenge them to do today?
I challenge you to go through those steps. I really do. Go through the step of pulling up your photo gallery, doing that reflection, writing your more of less of list, and start coming up with your word. Do those steps. And it will probably take a couple of days, and that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't think that this is an overnight thing. Don't be like, oh, she said that word and that's awesome. Okay, if you think that that word is awesome, wonderful, but find your meaning in it. Find your why in it because it has to be your word. It cannot be one of our words. Just like Kaitlyn and I said, intentional, like we each chose that word at one point, different meanings. You need to find your meaning of why you're using that word. So go through that process. Go through that process of the self-reflection, of writing your more of less of start finding that phrase that you can narrow down into the word and do it. Commit to it. Like, commit to it.
Yes, I love it. So ladies, that's what you're going to do. You're going to start working on finding your word of the year. Okay. And I want to know, Jessica, do you want to know?
Yes, I want to know.
So ladies, when you pick your word of the year, you're going to start working on this. It could take days. It could take a few weeks. Like, trust me, we know we've done this. It can take some time. I start at the beginning of December into November. Okay. But we want to know.
Yeah.
Post it in the LadyBoss community. DM me directly. DM Jessica. Jessica, do you have your handles? I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have your social handles so they can DM you?
I do. And the only reason why is because I was like, I know she's going to ask me and I totally have to find these out because, oh my gosh, like sometimes brain farts, like, and perimenopause, things just go woo-hoo, like out the window. So my Instagram handle is Jessica Z Peart. Z is my middle initial. So Jessica Z Peart. Last name is Peart. And my Facebook handle is Coach Jessica Peart is where you can find me.
Yay! Yes, so ladies, go pick your word and DM us. We want to know so that way we can continue to inspire you and build you up and hold you accountable to those words.
Yes. Yes. And then, okay, I'll take it a step further, Kaitlyn. Once they've got their word, you totally have to like send a picture, like put it in the Lady Boss community, whatever, of how you're actually like using your word, like the representation, whether it's something like this or something like that, or your screensaver or whatever. Like, I want to see, how are you bringing it into your life?
Yes, I love that. Challenge accepted, ladies, okay? We want to see it.
Yes.
So I know this was a longer podcast. I thank you, ladies, so much for hanging on with us. The word of the year, as I mentioned in the start, is something that's truly been life changing for me. And as you can tell in Jessica's story too. And we encourage you to go pick those words, set them and focus on them. Throw the goals semi out the window. Focus on the word and the intention you want your life to have, the meaningfulness, the purposeness of your life. Go choose that word, journal it down, share it with us, take a screenshot, a picture with it, share it with us. We want to know. But Jessica, I've got one final question for you before we go. Okay?
All right.
What is one thing that makes you feel unstoppable? I totally put her on the spot.
That totally put me on the spot. Can I swear?
I guess. I'll close my ears.
I feel unstoppable when I am being badass.
Yes. I love it.
I mean, Kaitlyn knows me, and some of you who have followed me. I love doing action sports. I love skiing and snowmobiling and mountain biking and scuba diving and all of that kind of stuff.
It's all the bumps and bruises.
For real. And honestly, that's when I feel unstoppable, is when I am like going for it. And it means
adrenaline junkie.
I am totally an adrenaline junkie, but even too in my career, when I'm like, I'm going for it and I'm like putting myself out there, that's when I feel unstoppable. Yep.
I love it. You are unstoppable, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining me on the Lady Boss Unplugged podcast. And thank you so much for being a light and a mentor to me. And I look forward to all of our other conversations we will have on this Unplugged podcast, because I'm going to tell all the listeners, you will be back. You won't have a choice, because I'm making you commit to it right now.
I will be back. No matter where Kaitlyn and I go, we are always connected. And a lot of it honestly goes back to, being open, being vulnerable, sharing a lot of these things, and, going through the hard times and going through the good times and all of the times in between. And so, Kaitlyn, thank you so much again for asking me to be a part of your podcast. And honestly, to just know I get to come back and share some more time with you just lights me up.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our Lady Boss listeners. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, because Jessica will be back and you want to catch all of her goodness, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. Bye.